Welcome everybody to our NSF-funded research traineeship on stakeholder guided environmental science mini workshop with Ingleside on the Bay Coastal Watch Association today. Before we get started with introductions, I did want to point out for our trainees that it is Research and Innovation Month here at TAMUCC, and there are two things going on this week to finish out the month. On Friday is a symposium for student innovation, research, and creative activities over in the UC Anchor Ballrooms. If you are not presenting there, it can be a good idea to go and see what is going on campus in both undergrad and graduate research. Also, the keynote speaker is Dr. Valerie Young. She will be presenting on rethinking imposter syndrome. If you have never had an opportunity to go to one of her seminars on imposter syndrome, I highly recommend going to this speech on Friday. And that is from 3 to 4 in the Lone Star Ballrooms. So with that, I would first like to start by going around the room for introductions, and then our attendees online. So Mahima, if you could get us started.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Mahima. I am a first-year master's student as part of the MARB program, and I'm also part of the Stages traineeship along with all the other students here. Anything else?
Marine bio?
Yes, marine bio.
I'm Amanda. I'm a first-year master's chemistry student and also in a teaching.
Hi, I'm Allison. I'm a PhD student in coastal marine system science.
Hey, Justin. I am a PhD student in coastal marine system science as well.
Hi, I'm Ifeanyi. I'm a first-year PhD student in coastal and maritime science.
My name is Laura. I'm a master's student in the Coastal Marine System Science program.
My name is Bee. I'm a fourth-year PhD student in the marine biology program.
My name is Blair Sturba-Boatwright. I'm emeritus professor of mathematics and statistics.
My name is Patrick Larkin. I'm an associate professor in Department of Physical and Environmental Sciences.
And I'm Philip Tissot. I'm at the Conrad Wucher Institute, chair for both artificial intelligence, and we're all part of the faculty for the NRT program.
Yeah, I'm Peyton Campbell. I'm the air and water monitoring coordinator for Ingleside on the Bay Coastal Watch. Got some online people with our organization. Patrick.
Yeah, Patrick Nye, I'm sorry I could not make it. I had some flu-like symptoms that I did not want to pass on to y'all. Thank you for having us speak today. Peyton's going to do most of the work here. Thank you.
Catherine? Kayla?
Hi, I'm Kayla. I'm a third year's master's student in marine biology.
Arsum?
Hey everyone, Arsum Pathak. I am the Senior Adaptation and Coastal Resilience Specialist for National Wildlife Federation. You'll be hearing a lot more from me and our program at National Wildlife Federation next week. But yeah, just joining here to learn more about this work.
And Jason?
Hey, good morning, y'all. Jason Pinchback, Texas General Land Office. Good seeing you.
And Catherine's mic isn't working, but she is one of the co-founders of Ingleside on the Bay Coastal Watch Association. So with that, I will hand it over to Peyton to start their presentations.
Thank you for having us. Happy Earth Day, everybody. Kind of an appropriate conversation for today. So these are just some local or some recent articles that Mr. Nye saw, just emphasizing the importance of climate change and the impacts on our local environment. The this month had 0.18 of a degree warmer than the previous hottest March in 2016. A recent UN article just came out on the 10th of this month. So where do we start? So we're trying to focus on point source studies, particularly with particulate matter 2.5 and VOCs, or volatile organic compounds. Where we're looking, we've got a lot of data to look at, and we're just trying to get some help interpreting it. We've got airflow models, we've got air monitors, we have 6 air monitors throughout our community. We've got, those are the Selbury-Cooper monitors. We've got a air monitoring dashboard put together by UT Arlington, kind of putting all that information together. There's optical gas imagery that we've got methane flyover, and we're kind of just going to go through all of that today, the data that we have at our disposal. You know, climate change is imminent. The EPA has recognized there's been underreporting of emissions. Right now, the TCEQ is granting permits all throughout, especially San Patricio County. The cumulative impact of all of these permits and all of the current industry really hasn't been studied. There's no current TCEQ air monitors in San Patricio County for them to even gather that data. It's all self-reporting from industry currently. And really, we're just asking, you know, how we can gather this data and help TCEQ and EPA enforcement and improve air monitoring, siting, studying wind analysis. So going to our next slide, it's kind of busy, but I'll just try to kind of break it down for you. So in San Patricio County, there are 2 desal projects being proposed, one for the Port of Corpus Christi and one for the city. And then there's a third Port of Corpus Christi desal location being proposed out on Harbor Island. And as well as the deepening project, where they're wanting to deepen out and dredge out that channel. Right now, it's just in a proposition phase, but it's a possibility in the near future that they'll begin starting on that. So if you kind of drop down and look at these stars here, those are all proposed ammonia facilities that are wanting to go up in San Patricio County. Later on, I'll have some stats on this Enbridge Yara ammonia permit to kind of see what sort of emissions will actually be done by each of these ammonia facilities. The little hearts are all of our local schools. And if you see those 2 green triangles, those are our SCI monitors where we're actively monitoring data. We're monitoring NO2, SO2, O3, PM 2.5, PM 10, and total VOCs. We also have another project that's looking at ammonia emissions. We have specific VOCs that we're looking at with this ampule gathering project. But as far as data is concerned, we've got all of our SCI monitors. We've got the Cheniere and Exxon air monitors, which there are 3 separate monitors there. And then over at McCampbell Airport, you'll see that little oil derrick. That's the carbon capture and sequestration proposed area that's owned by the port. Ideally, what they're wanting to do is they're calling this clean ammonia. It's blue ammonia is what it's called. So basically what will happen is they'll produce the ammonia, capture the CO2 emissions in theory, and then pipe them and sequester them geologically. That particular site, both myself and Patrick are geologists, and we've looked at it, and it is not ideal for sequestration. It's surrounded by orphan wells, and there's faulting all the way up to the surface. So the goal of what they're trying to do is not very feasible at this time for that site. So let me keep on going here. These are some of the previous studies that we've had. We've had luckily really good partners. We've had the SCI monitors in the current ammonia project. We've had ozone and NEQs. There's a flyover. We'll see a little bit more about that later with the methane study with Dr. Coffin and Dr. Yu. There was a seagrass study that was conducted. And then we've got the OGI imagery. And then the only TCEQ monitors are in Corpus right now, or in Nueces County. So we don't have any in San Patricio. And then we also have, ideally, we would get access to TCEQ's reporting as part of another data rubric, but that'll require either PIRs or the cooperation of TCEQ. This is a little bit just about our organization. It was founded in 2019 to promote the health, safety, and quality of life for surrounding communities through research, education, community, and action. With the rampant industrialization in San Patricio County, the founders decided that they needed to do something about the community. Oh, and this is, we've got a lot going on with our organization. These are all permits that we're currently challenging, whether through showing up to meetings, public comments, scientific studies, both academia and just community science. And more data sources potentially. All these permits have conditions that they're proposing. And it would help towards a cumulative study of the air quality in our area and what it'll look like should these permits get approved and these facilities be built. This was a recent study that was put out by University of Texas. And they did a study with their monitors around these facilities and see Stephen and Boston Elementary, Gregory Portland High School, and the Old East Cliff Elementary School. They looked at trends over 4 years, and the nitrogen dioxide, sulfur dioxide, and benzene levels were pretty good. They gave them A ratings. The thing about the particulate matter, though, is they said it was a B for good. And that's kind of stretching things. So the EPA just the EPA just recently lowered their threshold rating for particulate matter. It's gone down from a 12 micrograms per cubic meter now down to 9 micrograms per cubic meter. And I believe in 2020 we were hovering right below 9, and even now we're in the mid 8s, I believe. And that's according to this study here. We'll go into it a little later on what the means are on our monitors that we've been gathering. So yeah, so currently industry is self-reporting. They are reporting that there's been excellent air quality and that there's not any problem with the industry in the area. But you know, we kind of need help. This is the Cheniere Station's interface with all the data that they're reading. It is updated every 2 hours with new readings going throughout. So that's another data source. We also have windroses that are put together both through this ambient air network, and then this windrose, I believe, was correlated with this study. So I'm sure y'all are aware, but windroses, just to kind of interpret, I kind of had a hard time. I always would be confused on whether it was the direction it was blowing or the direction it's coming from. So just most of the time we've got a wind coming off of the bay, coming from the south at Ingleside, and then also from the northeast and easterly directions. And that's from June 2022 to May 2023. This is just showing one of our local Gregory locations. We had, this is the SCI monitor there. The orange bar is showing wind direction, and the blue is the total VOCs for that particular air monitor. The annual average is about 6,400 parts per billion. But ever so often we'll get these spikes there whenever there's emissions from the local facility, and it goes up to 57,105 was one of the readings there for the total VOCs there at the Gregory location. Oh yeah, going back to particulate matter. So particulate matter has been associated with premature mortality, increased hospital admissions, heart or lung causes, acute and chronic bronchitis, asthma attacks, and respiratory symptoms. It's typically infants, children, and the elderly that are vulnerable, or anyone that's at risk for any lung issues. Like I said earlier, the EPA dropped their air quality criteria for the ambient air quality standards from 12 micrograms per cubic meter to 9. And I believe that went into effect either last month or this month. Okay, and this is showing this our cellar middle loading dock. We did a optical gas imagery study there, and they had a class action suit against them back in 2022, where they paid $80 million. And then that was in January, and then we did this this optical gas imagery video in September later that year, and showing that they are still emitting that particulate matter. Kind of see. So if you notice that cloud that's coming out, it's this just dust that's constantly emitting from this facility that they've already been sued for once, and they keep emitting from that facility. And I believe in just a moment you'll see the yeah, so this is the Cheniere station. These flares are supposed to burn 98% of the emissions, and with the optical gas imagery you can see that they're clearly not. There's a great deal of emissions still coming off of these flare stacks. And that kind of goes into the study we'll look at here in just a little bit, where they did a flyby. So this is a lot of information on this slide, but really just the highlights are both the TVOCs, the total volatile organic compounds, and the particulate matter 2.5. So this is right outside of Patrick's house, out on Ingleside on the Bay. That particular monitor, which is right near the Enbridge location, has always been pretty high. We're bringing in another monitor, I believe in just a couple of weeks, which UT Arlington is going to provide us another monitor to try to correlate those findings, make sure that they are accurate. So we'll have 2 monitors at that location, but it's showing, like, for example, the high was 126 micrograms in February, with the average being 17, which is not only over the original standard, but almost double the new particulate matter standard. And then the Ingleside is also typically at 10 or over 9. So we've got multiple monitors. This is showing these are all of our monitors the last few months, this is back in 2023, just to kind of give you an idea of what they were reading. We've got Port Aransas, Gregory, Ingleside, and then 2 in Ingleside on the Bay. Our Sandpiper location, just right next to Mr. Nye's house, came back online in June of 2023 and has been reading over the federal guidelines since it's been online. So we've got a lot of data at our disposal. It's just a matter of interpreting it and getting it communicated effectively. So let's see. This is kind of going into the volatile organic compounds. Yeah, benzene, toluene, ethylbenzene, and hexane, all cancer causing. And then methane emissions, which we'll also look at later, are 80 times more harmful than CO2. It's very powerful greenhouse gas. The Gregory location is downwind from Chenier and Highway 361. They've got the highest VOC levels in our area. Ingleside's not too far behind, but Port Aransas is in a nice clear area. There's no industry around there. And so if you just kind of look at the VOC data over there, we're looking at an average of 10 parts per billion. And that's probably just car emissions and things like that. So without industry, it's the air quality goes up considerably. And then, like I said, we're also fighting that ammonia coming from the new facilities. So kind of just to go back to what I said earlier. So TCEQ, the Enforcement Division of Texas, who's responsible for allowing air permits and water permits, has no air monitors whatsoever in the entire county of San Patricio. So we've, tried to do what we could with our monitors and to supplement whatever data we could. The FLIR we had with Tim Doty, who came out this. Well, this is just an image then. So like at 2 a.m. is when they noticed that Enbridge facility was emitting a great deal of emissions. And it was happening, when everyone's asleep, they would flare up and gas it overnight. So we did a OGI imagery study there and got some good imagery. Let's see, this is just kind of just showing what kind of data we're dealing with. This is the, on the left, this is the SEI monitor. It's gathering data every 2 minutes. So there's a decent amount of numbers to crunch there. It's got wind direction. It's got humidity that we need to, the wind direction we need to correlate with this to try to figure out where the point source emissions are. Going into kind of the methane emissions, they're over 20 years, it traps about 80 times as much heat as CO2. So there's really no, one of the issues is there's really no over-the-counter methane monitors. So CH4 is a pretty difficult gas to detect. There are more expensive air monitors, but for community science, we haven't really found an economical one for us to look at. So we did put together a air study where they did look at methane emissions. This was back in 2021. They did a methane flyover, and if you look in the top left, that's the flight paths. And the blue areas are lower emissions, and as you get to red, you get higher emission volumes. And they really lit up over the Chenier facility that's out there in Ingleside. If you look at the bottom left, you'll see the map that's showing the Chenier facility, and the wind direction is coming out of the south-southwest. And so it really lit up as that wind was blowing, and you could see the emission numbers up into the atmosphere there. Again, in January 2023, they did another flyover, and this time they went not only over Ingleside area, but they also went over the Corpus Christi refinery area, and you can see their emissions numbers from there as well. And it lights up once again down there in Corpus Christi, where you can see those higher methane emission numbers. And up in the Chenier facility is once again lit up. And then this last study they did in August of 2023, the wind was blowing from a different direction. And so they saw the lower numbers around Ingleside and over in the refinery area in Corpus, they had the expected higher emissions along the refinery road. But one of the things they didn't expect was that over the bay, coming directly across the bay, is all those emissions from those facilities are just coming right over towards, well, towards here, actually. So, you know, it's not an isolated area, you know, everything's, with that wind direction is coming, all over the community. So it's an issue for all of us. And then, so this is another optical gas imagery, with the Tim Doty did back in 2022. And then just recently, Mr. Nye was also looking at the, another thing for us to look at, because the EPA doesn't study it, TCEQ doesn't study it, is the ship emissions. As this ship was loading in from the Enbridge facility, I mean, you could see a great deal of emissions coming in from the shadows. You couldn't see it with the naked eye, but he got a decent little picture of it there on the right. And kind of to go back, the Enbridge facility.
This is Chenier, Peyton, and they were loading an LNG vessel. Sorry.
I stand corrected, sorry. So that was at the Chenier facility. Just to kind of go back about Enbridge though, you know, they took over where the Naval Air Station used to be, and they are now the biggest oil exporter in North America. And I believe they're number 3 in the world. And then the station right next to it is the number 2 oil exporter in the world. So, and yet again, there's no official TCEQ monitors in that county since that industrialization. This is continuing on that flyover study with Dr. Hao Yu. And it was just studying the CH4 emissions, the methane emissions. And they did find that high winds would disperse it fairly quickly, but low winds would really elevate the ratios and increase what they were finding. This is all information available as well as far as data. So on the left, we've got a dashboard for all of our air monitors that would be available. We're getting to a point, we're trying to get to a point where it'll be a publicly available format, so that anybody in the area can check what the local air quality is with using our monitors. We're working on that right now. And right now it's at least color coded, where if there are particularly high, I believe on this particular occasion, that yellow shows an elevated PM 2.5 rating. And that's usually the issue that we've been finding, especially at that location, the PM 2.5 and other location as well. The ratings are much higher than the EPA guidelines. This is just more data that's at your disposal or our disposal as well. These are the Kestrel units. They're anemometers or wind direction readers that we've got in Ingleside on the Bay. We've got 2, one near Patrick's property and one at the end of the end of that street. And then we've got another one, I believe, in the Hillcrest area, which is near the refineries in Corpus. And that's just more analysis that we can get for wind direction. And then we also have the McCampbell Airport, which has data going back to 2007 until now. So showing wind direction and wind diagrams. Because ideally, as we put in more monitors, we'd like them to be in the best situated place to really get exposed to those emissions, to see what exactly is coming out and what levels they're at, if they're hazardous or if they're safe for us to be breathing. This is just another shot of windroses in the area. And then on the bottom there's ambientweather.net. It's a huge network of just consumer level air direction and monitoring that we have access to as well. And then just to kind of bring it back to Enbridge. So Enbridge, which is a Canadian company, and Yara, which is a Norwegian company, are proposing this clean ammonia facility there in Ingleside on the Bay. And it's going to be blue ammonia. And these are the emissions that they're proposing. So the VOCs, they're proposing 33.22 tons per year. The particulate matter is very concerning because we're already having elevated levels in Ingleside on the Bay, and that's 183.71 tons per year. And then 3.3 million tons of CO2 per year. Now, what they're claiming is that they're going to capture 95 to 98% of that and then sequester it. The issue with that is they're not taking any responsibility for actually putting that in the ground. It's all going to be third parties. And so they're going through trying to get all of these air permits approved, but they don't have any third parties set up for that sequestration facility or even facilities that can store it yet. And so they're trying to push it through. If they can capture the CO2, then these companies will be getting, let's see, is that yearly? Yeah, per year, they're going to get $247 million dollars in our tax money as benefits to produce this ammonia, capture the emissions, and then store it, and they're going to get paid more for storing, which is kind of counterproductive for the environment. Those emissions wouldn't exist without them creating this in the first place. So not a very clean ammonia project, despite what they're claiming. So just, yeah, conclusion, we're trying to get assistance with airflow modeling, air monitoring placement, and then just crunching data and figuring out what we can do to help our air quality in the community. That's it. Do you have anything else to add, Patrick?
No, I think you did a fine job. Thank you so much. When I started putting this together, I was worried about 2 years to save the world. And gosh, that's like getting a bad diagnosis from your doctor. How can we approach this? There's so many different variables. Um, do we attack climate change or health or both? And so that's kind of the premise behind this. And the people you're speaking to, Peyton, right there in front of you, that's our future. That's the people that are going to help us figure these things out. And great presentation. Thank you, Peyton.
I guess, any questions or? Yes, sir.
So you showed us a lot of data, but I guess what I would like is a clearer statement of where it is you want help.
Okay.
I got some things, I mean, it'd be nice to have like a slide or something with some reasonably clear research questions.
Yes, that's exactly what we have is a bunch of data with no clear indication of where the point source is for the volatile organic compounds and the particulate matter. I think if and Catherine, you may want to weigh in, but what we're lacking is when you have a monitor, you're not really doing a fence line monitor around these facilities. It's a 1.1 unidirection, mostly unidirection to be able to capture emissions. What I think would be useful would be to find using the wind data, wind velocity and direction, and putting together a way that we can predict what industries will be affecting us on given wind directions. Who's responsible for these higher emissions, and how we can get the TCEQ, perhaps the EPA, to install air monitors so that we can have data that they will recognize and have enforcement and be able to curtail a lot of things we're breathing right now.
And
Follow-up
I'll
question.
add that I really suggested adding that permits, the slide with the current permits, because IOB CWA is not a data collection organization, right? It shouldn't, it's a community. Ingleside on the Bay is a town of 700 people that is impacted by all of these emissions. And it's TCEQ that has a ton of data about these companies. And I'm not sure, and maybe you can, the research question is that Patrick is posing is, can the techniques out of the STAGES program with big data help identify who the culprits are? I think it maybe a better research question is, and I haven't formulated it myself, but is there a way that STAGES can get data that actually helps protect communities so that they don't have to look like this? That, Ingleside on the Bay is in survival mode. These literally are 20 permits that are currently at play on Ingleside on the Bay from many different companies. And you saw that messy slide with the different industries. Who's doing what? TCEQ is supposed to be doing some monitoring. They have tons and tons of data. We're not the data analysts, but maybe you guys are. And it's not just air, it's water as well. So when you see WQ permits on that slide, it's water quality. When you see AQ, it's air quality. When you see 404 permits and 401 certs, those are water quality permits and things like that. There's all this code that we've had to sort through, but behind each one of these is a lot of data. And I understood that TCEQ was one of the participating agencies in the STAGES program. So this gives you a real example of what it looks like for a real community that's located in the crosshairs of industrialization. And data, we're Ingleside on the Bay Coastal Watch was founded with an idea that we knew we needed data to help tell the story. And we're getting it piecemeal, but it's really hard to run this equipment and all that stuff. And, but there are public agencies that are doing it to a certain extent.
So ballpark, what would a monitoring station cost?
So a federally recognized monitoring station, I believe is around 150 to 200,000. But what they've said, I've been attending these EPA webinars about monitoring recently. They said that's only about 20% of the real costs. The other 80% is training, maintenance, and upkeep. So it's really, you're looking at over $1 million just for one of these stations. Now, the ones that we've been putting in, the just community monitors, aren't federally recognized, but the EPA does take that data under advisement, but it's not a federal standard or federal recognized monitor. And those are less than 10,000. So they range between 5 and 10. So, thank you.
I just wanted, maybe for the sake of myself, to make sure I understand what we have to work with or potentially have to work with. Could you go back to that slide with all of the locations right there?
Yes.
Okay, and so we have the SCI air monitors. That's the data that we're looking at, and that had the NO2, humidity, VOC, particulate matter 10, 2.5, and SO2.
Yes.
Okay, and then so we want to be able to look at the readings from those community monitors and link that to wind and see if we can identify point sources from these points as kind of the main.
Yes, and also looking at these facilities, maybe also looking based on the wind patterns where an ideal situation would be to put more monitors.
Okay.
So that are in the pathways of these emitters.
We have 6 of them. How long are the time series for the 6?
We've only, Patrick, when did we get those installed?
We had our first one in 21, and then we started expanding in 22, 23.
And we were putting a new one in Aransas Pass probably within the next month or two. And then there's 2 more coming through UT Arlington. They're going to be a little bit different. They're going to try those out to see if that will be a feasible replacement or to add more going forward.
There's also data at the Exxon 2 stations and the Cheniere station in Gregory that take out its speciation of the VOCs. And because Gregory is the highest VOC measurements in our array of 57,000 parts per billion, we're wondering if the speciation can be determined what they're actually breathing. Is it the higher ends of ethane, methane, or is it actually something that's more cancer causing? So that would be a way to integrate some of the $200,000 models with the $10,000 models that we have or units that we have. That might be also very important in understanding the airflow.
Only for the sake of curiosity,
Yeah.
what are like the main differences between these kind of more affordable and reasonable community air monitoring stations versus maybe something that is more pricey but federally accepted?
Yeah, so the monitors we have, they're probably about this big, and they've got these little sensors that are built into them. The federally recognized ones are entire buildings. They're probably these 3 table lengths, and it's just the equipment's more sensitive. It's all calibrated regularly with like test gases. I mean, everything is exact as you could get it. I mean, in these they call them, it's not even air monitors, they call them air sensors that we use. They're just, they're data points, but they're not calibrated constantly.
Yeah.
There's just more significant data error possibility, bias and things like that. So, I mean, that's the main difference, is just how sensitive the equipment really is and how it's gathering the data, and then who's running it. I mean, it's like I said earlier, like 80% of the cost is just maintenance and technicians, and you're constantly running test gases and just making sure everything's calibrated correctly. Yeah, that's its cost and testing is the big difference.
So then, since I'm usually kind of, I forget things easily, maybe I can send an email out to get some more info in terms of what type of air quality monitors are there. Maybe I can read about the sensors or whatever.
Yeah. So let me see if I've got, I think there was an email on here. But you can either send it to IOB CWA, or actually you can just send it to me. It's PAYTON@NYEXP.org.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yes.
.us, isn't it?
It is .us. I'm sorry. I saw the IOBCW.org and it threw me off. Yeah, .us. Sorry.
Could you go back up to that map?
Sure.
So the community monitors and the government monitors are collecting a lot of the same data, right? A lot of the same, like you're trying to do VOC and particulate matter and some of that stuff, right?
They are collecting similar data,
Okay.
yeah. These 3 right here.
So has there been, because I imagine maybe if you were trying to present this to like the EPA or to TCAQ, you say, hey, we have this data from our community monitors. Has there been any sort of attempt at like a validation of how close the data matches, especially for those 2 sensors that are really close to each other, so that you can say, hey, like, I know that they're not what you guys have, but our monitors are getting close to the same data, at least where the sites are.
Yeah,
in
so
proximity.
we're having an issue now with support from the producers of these monitors, which is why we're kind of looking at new ones, but we were every 3 months calibrating them with the cooperation of that Cheniere facility. So for 2 weeks out of every, I think, actually maybe 6 months, every 6 months, for 2 weeks, we calibrate all of our air monitors with that official one, so that we can make sure everything is reading the same as the official one, and then we put them back out in the field. So we are using that as kind of a correction, so we can get as close to the federally recognized one. So yeah, that is something we're doing, but you know, they're not officially recognized. They just take it as data. Yes, sir.
I should probably know enough to do this in my head, but let's just look at the two SEI air monitors in Ingleside on the Bay, the ones down center bottom. No, just in this map.
Oh, okay.
How far apart are they?
That's a good question. Do you know about how far they are, Mr. Nye? I know.
Yeah, a
where
little
they
over,
are.
over a half mile, I would think, by the crow flies or the air flies.
Okay.
How much difference is there between the two?
Yeah, that was what I was wondering.
Pretty significant, especially with particulate matter. It's very high at this facility right here. And not as high at this one.
This one's also on the bluff, right? It's
Yes,
quite a bit
yeah,
higher.
so this one's closer to sea level, and this one's up on that bluff there.
The Sandpiper has a direct line of sight with the in-bridge facilities, and the Sunset has oak mottes that the flow would go over the oak mottes and then have to reaccumulate at some point. So the one actually in Ingleside has been, go ahead and point to that one, is seeing a lot more of the VOCs, in some cases the PMs as well. So it's a lot about airflow, right?
I have one more question. It
Yeah.
might be a little bit technical, or maybe not super technical, but I'm curious about this particulate matter, just in general, right? This reading PM10 2.5.
Yeah.
I understand different ones have different maybe implications as to their effects, but that's about as deep as my understanding gets. Could you have maybe artificially high readings of particulate matter by just being next to the ocean and constant onshore winds?
So you could have elevated, I mean, but it's gotta come from somewhere. It's like soot and fine matter. Salt is a possible particulate matter.
Yeah.
There was a study in San Francisco that showed that salt was an attributing factor, but it didn't elevate the numbers significantly.
Okay.
There's also a new spoil island that's being constructed right off of the coast of Ingleside on the Bay. So a lot of construction going
That's
on.
gonna be raising it up as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess as an analytical chemistry guy, I just want to make sure I can say, you know, exactly, is this signal from that construction, or is it because we just had a lot of sea spray the past month or something along those lines? I mean, I'm sure those patterns will kind of sort themselves out, especially if it's associated with like an industry activity. But cool, thank you.
The other
Yeah.
questions?
I was going to mention that we've never seen levels this high in Ingleside on the Bay. So it could be part of the instrumentation, or it could be that we're seeing a lot more particulate matter, and that has to be determined. But nothing has ever, in the years past, this is one of the first locations, we've never seen anything as high as we're seeing.
What does the yellow triangle mean in the upper right corner?
Oh, so that's sorry, that's on the guide there. That's a possible location for a new monitor in Francis Pass that we're going to be putting in the next probably month or so. Yes,
6 to 9 locations with multiple air quality time series, at least 1 year, 1 to 2, 3 years. And then they could combine that with winds, with probably precipitation. So are there other time series, and also is there an air quality community model? I don't know. I don't do air quality, but I'm thinking there's the big data aspect of it, and then There could be a numerical weather, numerical air quality model that may be available, they could learn.
That's a good question. Yeah, I'm sure there is, or there may be. But you know, this is the data that we've been looking at so far, but there may be other data inputs that we haven't even considered.
Precip and wind and air temperature and.
Yeah, we've got that. Yeah, these all have humidity and temperature and, well, relative humidity, temperature, and then combined with the separate, Kestrel units for the wind and then the mechanical airport wind as well. The new monitors we're getting, I believe, will have built-in wind direction monitors as well, anemometers. So that'll be extra data as well, but that's not that's future. It's not something we already have at our disposal.
Are you aware of any possible dry deposition studies that have been done in the area?
Patrick, do you know?
Could you repeat the question, please?
I was asking if you're aware of any dry deposition studies that may have been conducted in the area.
Don't know what those are.
Yeah, maybe that's my fault too.
Okay, it's basically not really a sensor, but a filter is put out for a period of time and it's what lands on it. And then that's brought back to lab and processed for different types of particulates, nitrogen speciation, stuff like that. So that's your dry and wet deposition.
Yeah.
So what are you getting in precipitation? What are you getting when it's dry conditions?
Yeah, I don't.
Well, we did the canister studies, but those are like,
That's
that's not the same thing probably through EIP.
So that's kind of outside of stages, but to potentially something that may be of interest.
Yeah, those aren't very expensive. You just set up a little box with some filters and you just catch stuff, and then you can start doing. Cause I work with Dr. Felix, who's done, and I know he's done stuff like that, but I don't know where, and that's been passed.
Yeah, I know
so
he's
probably not a big.
Been involved in projects down in
Database?
Brazil,
Yeah.
trying to see how the burning in the rainforests is impacting the air quality in the cities. And then also, I believe his dissertation work was methane and nitrogen around dairy and cattle.
So that's how you can get at some of the, the wind direction stuff might not be able to completely constrain the sources. But if you also had like some isotope data where you could say like, this is a very obvious industry signature versus something that's coming from biological or stuff like that. So probably not within the scope of what we can do for stages, but if in the future if we could develop something with the air model and then the data that exists now, you might be able to take that in the future. And then if you can get isotope data to pair with it, then it could really strengthen the source tracing.
Yeah, that's something I'll look into.
Actually, we have a methane isotope PhD dissertation done by Dr. Hao Yu and Dr. Coffin that identifies the different anthropogenic methane sources. They used Laguna Madre, I believe Redfish Bay, looking at the seagrass degradation and methane components. And then they also looked at local industry and Cheniere, and there's direct correlations. In fact, go down your slides, Peyton, and I'll show you what her dissertation did. It's that's one of them. I think there's keep going a little bit further. Yeah, right there. See what that says. So this is what she was able to look at, Dr. Hao Yu. We had a greenhouse gas methane sensor across the street, and then she was able to take other samples, mobile and then airborne. And so, I mean, I want you to read through this whole thing, but it basically shows the components of the higher CH4 levels were coming from the north, which was unexpected, but also from the southeast, which is just down the street from us. So I think we do have some evidence of where some of the components, at least methane, is coming from. That may be useful for you.
Someone mentioned that this might not be appropriate for stages, and I was just curious what you are looking for. If there's anything in what's going on with Ingleside on the Bay that would be appropriate for stages. I mean, and maybe I misheard that.
No, I think the airflow and the using the data that we have now, I think that would be a good project for us. In fact, I'm interested in this one a lot. I was saying if you were to like implement more field work, that's probably not something we can do because we're just on like the data processing side of things right now. So we're just looking for kind of like existing data sets to use so that we can put them into the models that we're learning how to create. The only thing that would be outside of the scope would be any like additional field work. But I think what you guys have brought so far is feasible. Yeah.
There's also a time element.
Yeah.
Yeah. The data has got to be existing. They can assemble the data model, but new data, unless it's a check for something really focused and narrow, they too much.
Yeah,
But they
and
can
I-
recommend as part of their conclusions that such and such should be done.
And part of the UTA grant, the UT Arlington grant, is also looking at the data as well. It's got I'm co-principal investigator on that one, and it's got the goal is to have a visual data dashboard of all these sources, the air and water. So the hope had been to work together on that, but I get it.
I think the point of what I was putting together was maybe bring it down into two sources, just the VOCs and the PMs, because there is a lot of data and it's too much maybe to crunch. But again, if you could determine where these two sources are coming from, I think that would be a huge step in the right direction of understanding what the coastal bend is experiencing with some of these emissions.
Any more questions? Okay, then thank you, Peyton, Patrick, and Catherine. And so our trainees will continue to look into what you presented today. And we invite you back in May 14th for the big partner workshop where we're hoping everybody comes back. And our trainees will be presenting back to you what they have found and what they're thinking their projects will be to facilitate further discussion.
Okay. Sounds
Okay.
good.
Thank you.
Thank you.